Their season is over. I mean, if they play Washington, they're not beating Washington in the first round. It's as simple as that. Long term, you have to start asking some serious questions here. Now, I know the narrative being pushed out by Boston, every time they issue a press release on Kyrie Irving, it includes some form of the sentence, no structural damage in the knee. The knee has healed fine. This is about pain management. This is about a bacterial infection, which I never heard, by the way, when it comes to something like this. Great. Could Kyrie Irving come back, be fine next season? Yes. The recovery time puts it right around August. But this is his second major knee surgery in the last 3 years. And, Chris, you played the game, man. I don't care how minor some of them are. When you go into that knee, when you're yanking out screws, when you're cutting wires in there, that's serious. So until Kyrie shows he can play 70-plus games in a full playoff after all this has happened, you have to ask questions.
There were people in Cleveland that were disappointed that they got Isaiah Thomas because he was damaged goods. That's why they went back and got compensation after the trade. But the word out of Cleveland that was communicated to me was Kyrie Irving's knee will never be the same after that injury that he had. And I asked you that. You were like, oh, Kyrie's going to come back. I said, aren't you worried about his knee? Because I know the people in Cleveland, long-term, especially for guards, it's hard to have knee problems. It's hard to have a long career when you have problems with your wheels. We have seen it. Guards deteriorate faster. So for me, it's not about the playoffs, okay, because they didn't have Gordon. They weren't going anywhere anyway. But long-term, I'm concerned about that. When they're trying to add that final piece, do they go after a Kawhi? Do they go after the brow? Man, you got to be concerned about Kyrie Irving. As a guard with a knee like that, like, I'm with you. I'm reading through the little details and everything. I would be concerned. If I was a Boston Celtics fan, I believe it's more than just bacteria around the hardware that was placed in the knee. I got hardware in my foot. Just had it x-rayed last month. Guy asked me that I wanted to leave the hardware in there. I said, well, I'm not going to be playing any basketball anytime soon, but having those screws in your knee or in your foot, they are not good long term.
Well, and remember the Joe Varden report from a couple months ago that said if that Kyrie was prepared, if the Cavs didn't trade him, to have knee surgery that would put him out for the year. Now we have
And when you were talking about this, you and I told you, Nick, there's some truth to that.
Right.
Because Nick thought he was threatened just to hold him up.
I don't know if it was for the year. I know he was going to have knee surgery before camp and not go to camp. The type of surgery they thought they were doing in Boston, which would tweak some things.
See, so that's where I think there's a slight disagreement, because what I've learned, or what I understand, I should say, through other people's reporting, I haven't been doing the reporting, is that the moment they put those screws in, they told him at some point, we're going to want to take these screws out.
Yes.
And that's a surgery that will knock you out 4 to 5 months. And it seems to me that that is the surgery he was, according to Joe Varden's report, threatening. Like, okay, you guys don't move me. I need this surgery at some point anyway. I can do it right now as opposed to after a season. So the upside, the bright side, if you will, if there is one, is he probably needed the surgery at some point anyway. Had he waited until after the season, that delays the rehab further into next season. So that part of it's good. But the negative part, or there's obvious negative parts, but the procedural part of this is we're seeing, like I say it all the time, there's a reason teams don't go to 4 straight finals. There's a reason it is hard to play that many 100-game seasons, that many years in a row.
That intense.
So, guess what? Steph, he's having injury problems this year. Kyrie having injury problems this year. Kevin Love, not necessarily, I mean, he broke his hand, but he also had, I don't want to call them emotional problems, but he had his own issues dealing with stress and things like this. Like, we have seen guys, there is no precedent for what the Cavs and the Warriors have been doing. And for Kyrie, listen, people think I don't like Kyrie. I hope Kyrie's healthy.
All the guys that have been in those 3 series, for the most part, have been hurt. You go to Steph, Clay, Draymond, Tristan,
JR, everybody.
Except LeBron.
So, Chris, let's get back to our original question. What does this mean for the future of the Boston Celtics now?
Well, look, they have,
put it in perspective?
I mean, look, if he's not able to play at the highest of levels, if this continues to be an ongoing problem, they don't have a championship window. Like I wrote last night, their championship window begins next year. It opens up to some degree next season when Hayward's back, when Tatum and Brown are a little bit older. But if Kyrie Irving is dragging that knee around every All-Star break and needs procedures at various points during the season, they don't have a future. The question I would be asking, Nick, in the aftermath of that Joe Varden report, now that we have all kind of the information here, Why wasn't surgery done this offseason? If you know that this stuff, like if Joe Varden knows something, shouldn't the Celtics know something? Shouldn't they have this information? If you believe, like you said, Chris, that these screws are coming out, that this wire needs to be cut, why not do it in August as soon as you get him, and then you get him back on the floor December, January? Fair questions I think need to be asked.
Absolutely.
So it's just not, oh, Toronto's going to be, it's also what the smoke that was coming out of Cleveland.
That's it. Like two things you said there. One, the numbers from the last 3 years since LeBron's been back in Cleveland are utterly meaningless right now. Completely meaningless because Kyrie Irving's not there. Because they're trotting out whether it's Jose Calderon or George Hill instead of Kyrie Irving. The other thing you said was that, you kind of walked over the line that, yeah, the gap has closed or the margin for error is smaller. The margin for error went from the distance between you two sitting here at the desk and like this. It's paper thin for LeBron James and that team. He doesn't play well, they lose. That wasn't the case in the past. Plus, as we just talked about, the Eastern Conference, the top-tier teams, so obviously Boston's out of it, but Toronto, they're much better. Philadelphia, they're going to be tough. I think Washington, once Wall gets into a rhythm, is going to be tough for them in the playoffs. I think this is going to be the most challenging postseason of LeBron James' career.
Do you think the Cavs will play a single elimination game in the Eastern Conference playoffs?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
It might not be more than one. But I think they play one. Look, and that's not a knock on them. People take me saying the Cavs suck, but it's not.
No.
Look, the Warriors did. The Warriors played one just 2 years ago.
Your analysis of the Cavs is true. They're not as good as they were. This season, LeBron struggled more than any other season in Cleveland. Those are things that we saw in 79 games. It's not like we just pulled that out of a hat.
You know what we've also seen in 79 games? They're going to win the same amount or more games than they did last year with Kyrie.
My projection, biggest game of the season for the Toronto Raptors is going to be Game 1 of the conference finals against Cleveland.
Toronto better get there.
It's right. No, but Toronto better get there. But Toronto, they need to take a lead on the Cavs.
They
can't keep playing from behind.
Game ones.
Exactly. They can't keep playing from behind. Not against Cleveland.
Big game for Cleveland tonight. They're taking on the Sixers. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.